Some single-player games are fun for a few hours, and some are impossible to put down. Today we're going through 25 of the best single-player games everyone must play. Let's get into it. If you want to feel like Batman, Arkham City is still one of the best to ever do it. Instead of locking you in one facility, the game drops you into a walled-off section of Gotham that's basically a prison city run by criminals. Right away, you've got freedom to glide across rooftops, chase side missions, or push straight through the main story. What I love about this game is the combat. The free-flow system is smooth and ridiculously satisfying once the rhythm clicks. Counters, gadgets, aerial hits, everything chains together in a way that makes you feel overpowered. What really helps the game hold up is the pacing. The world is large without feeling bloated, side content stays meaningful, and the campaign keeps moving without dragging. Even now, Arkham City is still one of the most polished superhero experiences you can jump back into.
Plenty wrong with you.
You know, we never talked about it.
Days Gone is one of those games that had a rough launch, but quietly became way more appreciated over time. You play as Deacon, a drifter biker trying to survive in a post-pandemic Oregon, where the roads are empty and freakers are very much everywhere. What makes the game stand out is the constant survival pressure. Your bike needs fuel, weapons degrade, and ammo is never something you want to waste. Even simple trips across the map can turn messy if you're not paying attention. Then you run into the hordes, not small zombie groups. Full moving swarms that will absolutely consume you if you're careless. Learning how to handle them becomes a vital part of the game. Yeah, it starts slow, but stick with it, and Days Gone turns into a gritty open world ride that's easy to sink hours into.
What did you do? Everything.
When God of War came back in 2018, the big surprise wasn't the combat, it was the restraint. Kratos is older now, quieter, and trying to keep his past in check while raising Atreus, which gives the story far more weight than the original trilogy ever had. Combat still hits hard, just in a more deliberate way. The Leviathan axe feels great to throw and recall, and fights reward timing and positioning instead of pure button mashing. Once the system clicks, encounters feel heavy and controlled in the best way. The world design helps a lot too. It's semi-open but tightly connected, so exploration feels purposeful instead of bloated. Every new area tends to reward curiosity. God of War is one of the best examples of a franchise evolving without losing what made it work in the first place.
Can you kill something that big?
I'll carry you. Mommy is dead, Hugo.
A Plague Tale: Innocence is one of those narrative games that pulls you in quietly and then refuses to let go. You follow Amisha and her younger brother Hugo as they try to survive a brutal, plague-ravaged version of medieval France. Most of the time you're not powerful, you're vulnerable. The game leans heavily into stealth, light puzzle solving, and careful movement rather than direct combat. The rat swarms act like a living environmental threat, which keeps the tension steady throughout. Where the game really lands is the atmosphere. The world feels bleak without being empty, and the bond between Amisha and Hugo gives the whole journey real emotional weight. It's focused, well-paced, and knows exactly when to move things forward. If you like story-driven games with strong atmosphere, this one is very easy to get pulled into. Assassin's Creed Black Flag is the moment the series fully embraced the pirate fantasy. And honestly, it worked way better than most people expected. You play as Edward Kenway, a pirate first and an assassin, eventually. And that shift in focus gives the game a very different energy compared to earlier entries. The real star here is the naval gameplay. Sailing the Jackdaw across the Caribbean, hunting ships, and hearing your crew break into sea shanties never really gets old. On land, the classic Assassin's Creed formula is still there. Stealth, parkour, and story missions, but it's the open sea that carries the experience. Upgrading your ship, taking on stronger fleets, and chasing legendary ships gives the progression loop real momentum. The story also lands better than expected, especially as Edward's character arc starts to mature. Even years later, Black Flag is still one of the most fun open-world pirate games you can play.
Guided by grace.
Elden Ring takes the Souls formula and drops it into a massive open world, and somehow the tension still survives the jump. From the moment you step into the lands between, the game makes one thing clear. You're free to go almost anywhere, but nothing is going to go easy on you. Instead of pushing you down a strict path, Elden Ring lets curiosity lead the way. See something interesting on the horizon? You can probably reach it, just don't expect the trip to be safe. Combat keeps that familiar from software weight. Every dodge, every swing, every mistake matters. But the open structure gives you more breathing room than earlier Souls games. If something feels impossible, you can leave, get stronger, and come back later. Exploration does a lot of the heavy lifting here. Hidden dungeons, unexpected bosses, and constant small discoveries keep the world feeling unpredictable. It's demanding, no question, but once it clicks, Elden Ring is extremely hard to put down.
You remember me.
The Last of Us Part 2 takes the foundation of the first game and pushes it into much darker territory. This time, the story centers heavily on Ellie, and right away the tone is more intense and more personal. From a gameplay standpoint, everything feels tighter. Encounters are wider, enemy AI is noticeably smarter, and stealth gives you more flexibility in how you approach each situation. When fights do break out, they feel messy and grounded in a way that fits the world. Technically, the game still stands near the top. Animation work, environmental detail, and small character moments all help sell the realism the series is known for. It is a long and emotionally heavy experience, and not every story choice landed for everyone. But as a cinematic, story-driven game, it commits fully to what it wants to be.
Shoot me, motherfucker, come on!
Far Cry 3 is basically the blueprint Ubisoft kept using for years afterward. You play as Jason Brody, stranded on a pirate-controlled island that quickly turns into a fight for survival. The open-world loop is simple but addictive. You're clearing outposts, hunting wildlife for upgrades, climbing radio towers, and slowly gaining control of the map. Far Cry 3 was the game that really made this formula click. Outposts are still the highlight. Taking one down quietly without triggering alarms feels great, especially once you start unlocking more tools and abilities. Of course, a big reason the game stuck with people is Voss. His performance gives the story far more personality than most shooters from that era. It hasn't aged perfectly in every system, but the core design is still very easy to jump back into.
Who are you?
My name is DeWitt.
Bioshock Infinite shifts the series from the depths of Rapture to the floating city of Columbia, and the change in setting immediately gives it a very different energy. You play as Booker DeWitt, sent to retrieve Elizabeth, and what starts simple quickly turns into something much more layered. The game leans heavily into world building, political tension, and the kind of narrative twists the series is known for. Combat is faster and more mobile this time around. Skylines let you move quickly through arenas, Vigors bring back that classic Bioshock power feel, and Elizabeth's support abilities help keep fights flowing. Where Infinite really stands out is presentation. Columbia is bright, detailed, and full of contrast with the darker themes underneath. It's a more action-forward Bioshock, but the story and atmosphere still carry the experience.
The city's being torn apart.
Spider-Man 2 keeps what worked in the first game and smooths almost everything out. This time, you're switching between Peter and Miles, which helps keep both the gameplay and story moving at a good pace. Traversal is still the biggest win. Swinging already felt great before, but the added web wings and faster movement make getting around the city even more fluid. It's one of the few open worlds where fast travel barely feels necessary. Combat also gets expanded. Both Spider-Men have more abilities, fights are more aggressive, and encounters do a better job of keeping you mobile. It doesn't completely reinvent the formula, but it doesn't need to. It's a polished, confident game, and very easy to pick up and enjoy.
I think we're gonna literally make out like men.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of those open-world games that just keeps sticking around, and once you jump back in, it's pretty easy to see why. Instead of following a single lead, the story rotates between Michael, Franklin, and Trevor. That structure gives the campaign a lot more variety than most sandbox games, and the constant switching keeps things moving. Los Santos itself does a lot of the heavy lifting. The world feels busy in the right ways, and it's very easy to get distracted. You'll head out to do one mission, something random happens on the road, and suddenly an hour's gone. The heists are still the standout moments. Planning them, choosing your approach, and watching everything either go smoothly or completely sideways adds real tension to the story. Most people know the game inside out by now, but the core design still holds up extremely well. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 doubles down on what made the first game stand out. Grounded systems and a world that doesn't really care if you're comfortable. You're back as Henry, and right away the game reminds you this isn't a typical power fantasy. Combat is slow, deliberate, and very unforgiving early on. If you rush fights, you'll lose fights. What really separates it, though, is how reactive the world feels. NPCs notice how you're dressed, reputation actually matters, and towns behave like they exist whether you're there or not. It gives the whole experience a strong sense of immersion. Quests also avoid the usual checklist structure. Many situations can play out differently depending on how you approach them. It's definitely not the most beginner-friendly RPG, but if you like systems-heavy, grounded experiences, this one hits its lane.
You a Witcher?
The Witcher 3 is one of those RPGs that people keep coming back to, and a big reason is how much weight the game gives even its smaller moments. You step into the role of Geralt of Rivia, and early on it feels like standard monster hunting work. But the deeper you go, the more the game starts pulling you into morally messy situations that rarely have clean outcomes. Side quests are where the game really separates itself. Even minor contracts often turn into full storylines with consequences that actually stick. The world design plays a big part too. From war-torn countryside and crowded cities to windswept islands and stormy coastlines, every region has its own atmosphere and personality. Combat isn't perfect, but the writing and world-building carry the experience easily. Even now, it's dangerously easy to disappear into for dozens of hours.
Just the beginning.
Next up, we got Dying Light. At first glance, the game looks familiar. Infected city, scavenging for supplies, crafting weapons, but the parkour system changes everything. Sprinting across rooftops, chaining climbs, and barely making jumps gives the whole game a constant sense of momentum that most survival games don't have. During the day, you've got room to breathe. You're looting, exploring, and dealing with regular infected. But when night hits, the tone flips fast. Volatiles come out. Visibility drops, and suddenly every movement feels risky. It's one of the few day-night systems that genuinely changes how you play. Combat leans heavily into melee early on, with weighty swings and breakable weapons that keep you rotating gear. It's rough around the edges in places, but the movement, tension, and open-world flow still make Dying Light a must-play. Super Mario Odyssey succeeds at the one thing every great platformer needs to get right. It feels incredible to control. Mario's movement is smooth, the jumps are precise, and there's a real sense of momentum that makes simply running and leaping across the world satisfying. The game is also built around curiosity. Every kingdom hides secrets, small challenges, and unexpected paths that reward players who take the time to explore. What keeps the experience fresh is how often the game introduces new ideas. Each area brings different mechanics, enemies, or situations that keep things from feeling repetitive. At the same time, the pacing stays light and fast. Most challenges are short, clear, and rewarding, so progress always feels steady. Whether you're casually collecting moons or pushing toward full completion, Super Mario Odyssey stays consistently fun from beginning to end.
There's the strength.
Horizon Forbidden West builds directly on what Zero Dawn started, but everything feels bigger and more refined this time around. You're back with Aloy, heading further west, and the world immediately stands out. From dense jungles to coastal ruins, the environmental detail is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's the kind of map that actually makes riding between locations feel worthwhile. Combat still revolves around preparation. Scanning machines, targeting weak points, setting traps. Fights reward players who take a second to plan instead of rushing in. Traversal also gets smoother. Climbing is less restrictive, movement options open up more, and exploration flows better than before. It doesn't drastically change the formula, but it improves it in the right places.
Nothing means more to me than this game.
Red Dead Redemption 2 takes its time, and that patience is a big part of why the world feels as convincing as it does. You follow Arthur Morgan and the Van der Linde gang as things slowly start to unravel. The story moves deliberately, giving you plenty of room to just exist in the world between major moments. What really stands out is the level of detail. Towns feel lived in, random encounters pull you off the road constantly, and even simple travel has weight to it. Gunfights are grounded and punchy when they happen, but the quieter moments do just as much work. Camp life, side encounters, and exploration all build the atmosphere. It's slower than most open-world games, but if the pacing clicks for you, it's incredibly absorbing.
Correct.
Titanfall 2's campaign is short, but it wastes almost none of your time. You play as Jack Cooper, who ends up partnered with BT-7274, and that pilot-Titan dynamic ends up carrying more of the story than you might expect going in. Movement is where the game really shines. Wall running, slide chaining, and quick momentum shifts make firefights feel fast and fluid once you get comfortable. The smart part is how often the game changes things up. One mission focuses on time-shifting mechanics, another leans heavily into Titan combat. It rarely lets the gameplay feel repetitive. The campaign only runs around 6 hours, which is probably the biggest downside. But in terms of tight-focused FPS design, Titanfall 2 still holds up extremely well. Shadow of the Colossus strips things back in a way most big games wouldn't dare. There's no crowded map full of activities, just you, your horse, and 16 massive colossi somewhere out in a quiet, empty landscape. Each encounter is basically a puzzle boss. You're climbing, holding on, and trying to figure out weak points while the creature does everything it can to shake you off. It creates a very different kind of tension compared to standard action games. The tone is intentionally minimal. Long, quiet rides, very little dialogue, and a story that mostly lets the atmosphere do the talking. It won't click for everyone, especially if you prefer faster pacing. But if the mood grabs you, it's one of the more memorable experiences in the genre.
More and more androids show.
Detroit Become Human leans fully into the interactive drama angle and sticks with it the entire way through. You follow 3 androids, Kara, Connor, and Marcus, in a near-future Detroit where tensions between humans and machines are clearly heading somewhere messy. The big hook is choice. Decisions don't just tweak dialogue, they can completely reroute scenes and character outcomes. This is very much a narrative-first experience. Gameplay is mostly exploration, quick-time moments, and conversation choices, so the real weight sits on the performances and branching structure. Where the game succeeds is in how quickly consequences show up. Hesitate too long, push too hard, or trust the wrong person, and you'll feel it almost immediately. If you enjoy story-driven games where your choices actually affect the outcome, this one is worth playing. Disco Elysium goes in a completely different direction from most RPGs, and that's exactly why it stands out. You wake up as a detective with no memory, a trashed hotel room behind you, and a murder case waiting outside. Instead of traditional combat, most of the game plays out through dialogue and skill checks. Your abilities represent parts of your own psyche, and they constantly chime in during conversations. Sometimes they help, sometimes they absolutely do not. The writing does most of the heavy lifting. It's dense, weird in a good way, and very confident in letting conversations take their time. There's a lot of reading, so it won't land for everyone. But if you're into narrative-heavy RPGs that trust the player to keep up, Disco Elysium is one of the most unique entries in the genre. Tears of the Kingdom takes the foundation of Breath of the Wild and opens the sandbox much wider. You're back in Hyrule, but the new abilities, Ultra Hand, Fuse, Ascend, completely change how you approach problems. The game gives you a surprising amount of freedom and usually respects whatever solution you come up with. Exploration still has that strong pull. Between the Sky Islands and the depths below, the map feels more layered and easier to get distracted in. Combat remains familiar at its core, but Fuse adds more room for experimentation once you start playing around with weapon combinations. It does expect a bit more tinkering from the player. But if the systems click for you, it's one of the most flexible open-world sandboxes out there.
The biggest pirate treasure.
Uncharted 4 works as both a continuation and a send-off for Nathan Drake. Drake is older, supposedly retired, and of course gets pulled back into one more treasure hunt. The pacing is a bit more controlled this time, with more space given to character moments between the big action sequences. The set pieces are still very much here. Chases, collapses, shootouts, but they're balanced better with quieter stretches of exploration and climbing. Movement also gets a small boost with the grappling hook, which helps traversal feel more fluid than earlier entries. Where the game really shines is presentation. Animation, voice work, and environmental detail still hold up extremely well. As a closing chapter for Drake, it lands cleanly. Death Stranding 2 keeps the core identity intact, but smooths out a lot of the early friction. You're back moving cargo across wide, deliberate landscapes, planning routes, and managing your load. The loop is still very much about traversal and preparation, but the overall flow feels more refined this time around. Tools open up earlier, movement feels cleaner, and the pacing is less punishing in the early hours. The world also shows more variety, which helps long trips feel less repetitive. It's still very much its own thing, quiet, methodical, and occasionally very strange. Not everyone will click with it, but if the first game worked for you, this one feels more confident right out of the gate.
Is this true?
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 mixes traditional turn-based structure with more active combat mechanics. The setup is unusual right away. Every year a number is painted, and everyone of that age dies. You're part of the expedition trying to stop it before the count reaches you. Combat blends turn-based decisions with real-time inputs like dodging and parrying, which keeps fights more engaging than standard menu-based systems. Visually, the game stands out quickly. The dark fantasy tone and art direction give it a distinct identity compared to most modern RPGs. It's a newer entry, but the combat ideas and presentation have already gotten a lot of attention. If you've been waiting for a turn-based RPG that feels a bit more active, this is one to watch.
Who are you?
Black Myth Wukong leans heavily into fast, aggressive action combat with clear Souls-like influence. You play as the Destined One, a staff-wielding monkey pulling from Journey to the West mythology. Right away, the focus is on tight dodge timing, heavy boss encounters, and chaining abilities together efficiently. Fights are demanding but readable once you start learning enemy patterns, and the variety of transformations and spells adds flexibility to the combat loop. Visually, the game makes a strong first impression. Environments and enemy designs pull heavily from Chinese mythology, which gives the world a distinct identity compared to most action RPGs. It's definitely built for players who enjoy mechanical challenge. But if the combat clicks for you, Black Myth Wukong delivers some very satisfying boss encounters. And that wraps up the list. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming lists and breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.